you. Okay, it says that the broadcast is live. So here we are. Welcome, Team InnovAIte, to Sure Start's special Spotlight series. I think this is the first time that we have done a spotlight with more than two people. So this is very exciting that we have you here. Why don't we have you talk about the amazing journey that you guys have been on in the 6 weeks that you were part of the Sure Start program? I'm going to just ask you questions about, what it was like when you first met. How did you coordinate all your times, given that you're all from different places, and how you came up with your idea and how you finally ended up at the top of the leaderboard. But before we get there, I would love for you to introduce yourselves, your name, where you're from, and where you are in school right now.
I guess I'll start. My name's Will, and I am from Cupertino. I go to Monte Vista High School, but I'm in a program where I'm doing dual enrollment, so not really anymore. And yeah, that's me. I'm a senior in high school.
Fantastic.
I guess I'll go next. My name's Jason. I'm studying at George Mason University, currently in Virginia. Yeah, that's about it.
I can go. Hey everyone, my name is Aditi. I'm a freshman in college at the University of Washington, and I'm currently at home in Redmond.
All right, I can go. Hi, I'm Anusri. I'm from North Andover, Massachusetts. I go to North Andover High School, and I'm a junior.
And hi, I am Kunjal Panchal. I am originally from India, but I'm studying in University of Massachusetts Amherst, and I'm currently in Amherst doing my master's in computer science.
Fantastic. So I feel like I can hear myself a little bit. There's some echoes, but we'll just push through it. So why don't you talk a little bit about what was this experience like? The 5 of you are in different time zones. I think I heard some West Coast, some East Coast. I don't know if those are the only 2 time zones that are represented, given that everyone is at home and moving around a little bit. But what was it like when you guys got thrown into a team in the Sure Start program and then you met each other? Anyone have some fun memories or interesting things or even thoughts or questions that you had when you first started?
I think managing the time zones was definitely a bit of a challenge, especially with school and stuff and our class schedules.
Yeah, I think that there were definitely times where folks on the East Coast would wake up before some of us on the West Coast went to bed. So there'd be interesting times where we'd be up late and working on the project. We'd have a question at really late in the night or early in the morning, if you think about it, and we'd still get an answer, which I thought was pretty funny.
I think it was the night before our presentations. We were working Pacific time. It was kind of okay, 8 or 9, but East Coast it was pretty late, but they were still with us, which was great.
This was during the Makeathon, right? When it was in the last sort of push, last week and a half before the Makeathon as you were headed towards it. But in the first 4 weeks of the program were much more about self-paced learning in a small cohort with a supportive mentor. So what was your usual meeting time during that phase of the program?
It usually worked out to be around 11 or 11:30 a.m. Pacific time, so 2 to 2:30 p.m. Eastern. And it, for some reason, every single day, it just kind of fit into that slot. So I guess it just worked out in everyone's schedule. Or there were a couple times where we didn't have someone, but it worked out for the most part.
Yeah, let me also add that for phase 1, we all had some exams or some tests going on, and still the students were so brilliant. You all pushed through it, and you completed your material and asked brilliant questions every day. And it shows that you actually cared about AI and the program. So kudos to you, all of you.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
I also have to say thank you to Kunjal, because even during like the meetings, we would like have a question and she would just like pull up a whiteboard and like draw stuff out, which was really helpful for not just understanding the material, but also just sometimes we would have questions that were outside what we read articles about, but she was always really good about.
She's brilliant. She is an awesome mentor.
Thank you.
You guys were especially lucky to have Kunjal. So actually, would one of you, just for the people who are listening in, talk a little bit about the program and, sort of the two different phases, the learning phase and the building phase, and what was covered in the curriculum? Who's going to take it?
I guess I can take it then. Let's see. So the program was split into two major parts, which was the I would say the theory phase and the learning, self-paced learning phase, and then the Makeathon phase. So for the first phase, which was the self-paced learning phase, everything was structured out really well. We had a day-to-day tentative schedule, and it covered all the basics from an introduction to AI, machine learning, and with a focus on the ethics behind it. And then it moved on to deeper and deeper topics about the types of machine learning and the types of AI. We learned a lot about its practical applications and how it's used in the industry today. The curriculum covered a lot of examples, which made it a lot easier to follow along. So even if we were a day behind or something, it was easier to catch up because we always had examples and extra resources to follow up on. Yeah, and then the second phase was the Makeathon, where we received a prompt and we had to choose our project topic. And this was probably one of the most discussed parts that we had so far. We had a lot of ideas bouncing off each other. Will, in particular, was really helpful at playing devil's advocate, seeing what worked, what didn't work. Yeah, eventually, actually right before the Makeathon started, we decided that we wanted to focus on computer vision. So when we got the prompts, it was a lot easier for us to narrow down on a topic. So yeah, once we narrowed down on the topic, we had, I think, about 2 weeks to work on the actual project. And yeah, we had our mentor who helped tremendously, provided us a lot of resources and suggestions. And we also had people from the Sure Start team who was always available if we had questions. And frequently we scheduled meetings with you, Tanya, and Oscar as well, to get all our questions answered, making sure we were making good progress in our project. So as far as the Makeathon phase goes, it was all about planning it out, scheduling, making sure everyone's on the same topic. And the final week was more gathering all the materials we've finished, creating the presentation, just practicing and practicing. Until the final day on Thursday, we went through 2 rounds of presentations. That's pretty much how it went.
Yeah, that was a very, very comprehensive summary. I couldn't have said it better. So this was well said. So I have a question. How many of you, when you first saw the curriculum, what were some of the thoughts that went through your mind? Did you, I know that like in our programs, we especially like to bring together students with different amounts of experience with computing. And I think every team had at least one person who was quite new to computing and one person who had a fair bit of experience with computing, given sort of your age and your educational journey where you are on. I'm very curious to hear what were some of the thoughts that you guys had when you were first faced with the curriculum and sort of this kind of two-phase approach. Positive and negative. Like, what were the thoughts that went through your head?
So I think. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, well.
Okay. I remember when I actually signed up for the program. I think you said it was like 8 to 10 hours per week, and I was like, wow, that's a lot of work. And then when you sent the curriculum, I was looking through it, and I'm like, wow, this first week we're already doing all of these different topics. I think like neural networks was in week 1. And then week 2 was like this whole array of new topics. And these are things that I've always like read about and I've always wanted to learn, but I never really had the push to sort of do it myself. So having the organized curriculum was really nice for just being able to like, oh, this is what I have to do for today. And it was a very cohesive, like organized path to learn everything. But it was definitely a lot of work. And I definitely remember the beginning going like, wow, this is going to be a lot of work having to learn all these different topics. But yeah, it was fun.
Similar to what Will said, just AI or machine learning seemed like buzzwords before, and I just didn't know enough, or I thought I couldn't learn about all these things myself. But having the curriculum and like having it be laid out in like bite-sized chunks was really nice, which I could just look at and see, okay, week 1, I'm already doing all this, but there's resources and different things that I could look at and just, just learn about all these things that seemed like very complicated, but have them be broken down into concepts that were digestible. Yeah.
Yeah, to add to that, I also really liked how it was a project-based curriculum. So it wasn't just we were learning the theories and like the information, we were also applying it. So I really liked that.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Do you think, so, all of this, our curriculum is not, made up of things that, I or anyone on our team really created bespoke. We actually took sort of the morass of information that is already available to us on the web and kind of created a path through it, right? That was really our approach, because we don't really believe in reinventing the wheel. There is tons of good material out there. So what would you say is the difference between doing this curriculum in a cohort-based setting with a mentor, as opposed to if you had tried to do, if I had given you exactly the same material, but it was, entirely, it was like taking any kind of online class. Do you think the experience would have been would you have had the sort of impetus and the drive to move forward as you clearly did in this program? I think what I'm trying to ask you is what was the impact of having your team and a mentor who was walking with you during this path, and kind of the relational aspect of it that was really the foundation of learning that we have tried to put together in this program?
I think, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
Okay. I think the fact that we were all learning together, learning the same topics at the same time together was the biggest factor in having a team-based learning program. Just because when I'm learning something, I might read through it in practice, but I'll always miss something. Like, I'm not going to get everything the first time. And the other team members had great questions during our stand-ups, which I hadn't even thought about. So there were many times where we were bouncing off each other, and that helped a lot in the learning process.
Just to add on to that, I think it was more just that every single day we have a set meeting time, and during that meeting we're going to be discussing the curriculum, and if we have any questions, we'll be able to get them answered. I think that was the biggest drive factor for me, at least. It was just we're all going to be discussing this tomorrow, so I better learn the material.
What about you, Aditi? What were you? What was the experience like for you?
Yeah, building off of what they already said, having a meeting time was definitely gave us some more accountability, and which would probably not be the case if I was just signed up for a online course, which I was not taking it with anyone, and like I wouldn't have anyone else to just discuss it with. So, and I think also the group size really helped. Like it wasn't like it was 30 other people. So we got to know everyone on a personal level, and just, yeah, having that connection really helped.
Yeah, I think the team size really helped because it definitely made it feel like your struggles were like everyone else's struggle too. And like if you figure something out, it's like everybody else was happy.
That's a great way to put it. If you figure something out, everyone else is happy, because it's like, you're building through the, it's kind of like a purpose-driven way of building relationships, building friendships, right? You're all kind of in the same boat trying to master the somewhat complicated material, but then kind of heading towards this challenge that you're all going to, partake in together as a team. So moving to the challenge part of it. Okay, what were some of the ideas that were discussed? You have an awesome idea, and I want you to share with everyone about that. But what were some of the ideas? Like, where did you start, and how did you pick the problem that you did pick?
Thinking back, I think we started with Jason saying he was interested in doing something with aggression detection in cars. So I think after that, we just started really focusing on like automotive AI and just solutions in the car. And I think that eventually led us to the product we created, which was DriveAID.
Okay,
Yeah.
well.
So I'm just having a bit of trouble remembering all of the ideas we created. I can't quite remember.
Yeah, I know we really focused down on computer vision and something automotive related.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had a bunch of ideas. I think, yeah, Anushree or Aditi, I'm not sure who, but there was an idea about, so we were focused on the learning aspect of driving. And once we narrowed it down to that, we were thinking about what product we could make with that, or what problem we could solve. So one of the things that was brought up was something for driving schools, like how they could incorporate it into their existing curriculum to help new drivers or during a driving test. I remember that one was talked about.
Kunjal, what was your role as a mentor, right? Like you're sort of trying to, almost be like a project manager, trying to help create structure without intervening sort of in the creative process. So what was it like to be a mentor when everyone was like coming up with ideas? How did you encourage everyone to listen to each other, or were they already very good at listening to each other? How did you help them narrow down to their problem that they presented?
Yeah, so my team is amazing. They were always very welcome to each other's ideas. So I never had to worry about someone just outright canceling each other's creative ideas. And yeah, I think we've talked a lot about in-car object detection and how this emotion AI can be used in a way that it's still ethical and still helpful to all the people. So yeah, the major part of the discussion would focus on what can we create which is not intrusive to people's life, and it can still be very much useful. And my part as project manager, as you said, I didn't want to interfere in their creative ideas, creative thinking. So I was just trying to stay back and just let everyone talk about their ideas, let everything be on table at the same time, and then we can pick something out of it which is um, in agreement to everyone. So yeah, and that part was very helpful in my learning also, because coming from purely technical background, I also got to learn a lot for this market analysis and how we can, this entrepreneurship and how young brains are trained to think about not just AI as in the sense that we are creating some robotic product which is out there to intrude in your personal lives, but we are also taking care of the human aspect of AI. So that was all new for me. And as I always say, more than mentoring, I take it as a collaborative learning. And I learned as much as my other member of my team would have learned.
That's well put. So, without further ado, how about Anushri, because you had a special resonance with that topic, talk about what was the problem that your team eventually, attempted to solve, and maybe, Will, you can talk about the solution, and I have questions for the other two as well.
Okay, so I guess I can start with the problem. So our focus was on teen driving education, and I'm actually 16, so I got my license a couple months ago. So I took driver's ed during the pandemic, and what I saw during the pandemic was that driver's ed regulations and rules and requirements kind of got pushed back a little bit. Like it wasn't as strict, we didn't have to do as much to get our license or our permit. And because of that, I noticed that a lot of our driving skills were not as good as they would have been if we had taken regular driver's ed. And that can be a concern because like we're on the road and like teen drivers are already like at a risk for accidents and stuff like that. So I think our aim was to make sure that we could make sure these drivers that are coming out of the pandemic have better driving habits.
Yeah, so to talk about our solution, I think that during our market analysis, we were looking at like what the most concern or what the biggest concerns were, and I think distracted driving was definitely up there on the list. And so we thought of creating a dual model system where we looked into detecting different gestures such as texting, talking with the passenger, operating the center console, or talking on the phone. And we found a great data set to do that on, I think it was Kaggle. And so we used that. And then we also created an emotion detection model, which we could then cross-reference with the gesture detection and then create, well, we didn't fully incorporate our idea, but we wanted to create a sort of an overall distraction rating and an overall safe driving rating to hopefully inspire self-reflection in a driver to improve themselves. And so yeah, that was our main model. And so we were using that to target teen drivers. However, we also received pretty good feedback from the judges. So we also think that another market target would be older folks who may be closer towards the end of their driving time. But yeah, that was the main gist of our solution.
That was fantastic. So, Jason, what were your team's ethical considerations as you were building this technology, which of course involves, computer vision, which has its own sets of challenges and consequently, really important considerations around ethics, as well as it involving driving, which has, implications to our health and safety.
Yeah, that's a great question. So what we considered a lot of things. Our first one was the recording aspect of it. Our main ethical concern that Will was really adamant about throughout the entire process was that we should mention that it's a fully consensual process where it's not a parent forcing their teen to record themselves while they're driving, but it's kind of a two-factor system where the parent agrees to it, and then this teen also agrees to it before they start their driving session. So they're both on the same page that it's a learning process. And then we also wanted to make sure that anything that was recorded would be deleted at the end of the session. So what we did was we emphasized the fact that the recordings were deleted after the report was generated at the end of the session during the analysis phase. Another concern was I've lost it. I had it in my mind for a second.
Just to add on a little bit to that, we were really, definitely emphasizing that everything was like locally done.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we would record, we would take the data that we needed and only the data that we needed, and then everything else would be deleted. Because, a lot of us personally recognize that we wouldn't want to be recorded ourselves and have that sent to our parents. So our application definitely incorporated this idea that the recording would be deleted immediately after being analyzed.
Right. That's a good point. That's actually what I was thinking of. Another thing was that during our app mockups, our mobile app mockups in the presentation, we didn't show any indication of the person actually being recorded because we wanted to make sure that while you're driving, it's not like you're looking at a reflection of yourself. Like you can constantly see in your peripheral vision that you're being recorded, and that would actually stress the driver out even more and potentially cause a bigger safety issue. So that's why we wanted to incorporate GPS tracking so that it would work more like Google Maps, where you can set a trip. And then only at the end would it analyze the video and generate the report without causing any distractions or real-time issues.
But I think you guys have really, really thought deeply and really considered all of the different constituencies involved in this equation. The team driver, the driver's parents, and then of course everyone on the road. And I think that makes me really happy that you have, along with learning how to build awesome technology, have really sort of taken the ethical considerations of it just as have understood those to be as important and incorporated it in the final project that you build. So Aditi, as the last question before we all say goodbye, I would love to hear from you. What were the learnings? And actually, once Aditi answers, I would like others to take a moment to chime in. If what were the learnings that you had by learning together with each other and really walking this awesome, fun journey together?
Yeah, I would start out by saying that the first half of the curriculum and just being open to like maybe not understanding a few things, but making a note of that and just asking questions, because all these concepts that we're learning, they're hard. No one can expect you to just learn everything in the first go, but just like sticking with it. I also like because things like build off of each other, you notice like certain things that you learned before coming up again, and then like you see them being used in like different ways. Just like recognizing different patterns, and like that was helpful. And as we went into the Makeathon part of it, bringing all that knowledge and also collaborating with others, having an open mind. I think even I'm like kind of blanking, but just overall knowing that as a team we wanted to build something useful that we would use and like everyone else would find helpful, and yeah, just doing that was a great experience. And now I could take everything that like the code I wrote maybe, and then like in the future, if I want to do something, just build off of that as well. So it was just like a journey that I could not just that didn't end at the Makeathon after it ended, but also just like I take with me forward, of course.
That's fantastic. Others, just quickly, what were your learnings? Anything you want to share with our audience?
I think Aditi covered it pretty well, but I would like to add on that the seminars that were happening almost twice a week at some point were really helpful because many of them actually reflected the ideas we were thinking about. I remember one in particular was about automotive safety and the use of AI and facial recognition. So that really helped put into perspective the applications of what we've been learning so far. Because so far, our curriculum was structured really well and there were a lot of examples, but they were very isolated examples. And seeing something being used in the real world, which is based on what we were learning, was really helpful.
And just to point out one of the seminars in particular, I think it was one of the last ones where it was about the Makeathon. I remember there were so many different considerations that she brought up, like you have to consider this factor and this factor and this factor. And I think, like listing all of those out, and then when creating our idea and developing it, actually looking at each of those items and actively thinking about, have we done this and have we done this next item, really helped with knocking down all of our, different roadblocks and ideas, and developing our product so that, it'd be ethical and have a proper audience and all of those different aspects. So the last seminar was really helpful.
Yeah, and just to add on, besides the learning, also the relationships you build here were amazing. Like I know my team and I were all going to continue following each other's journeys even after the program and beyond.
Well, that is wonderful, and it's fantastic to have all of you here today. I believe a week and a half after, our Makeathon ended, and we at Sure Start miss each of you. So it was great to have you back for, 35 minutes or something, and just to sort of relive that journey a little bit, through all of your stories. And we will continue to follow your successes and the many wins that you are going to encounter in the rest of your career. We are always here for you, and we hope you will reach out if there is anything we can do to help you, or if you just want to have a chat. With that, I'll say goodbye. Thanks so much for being here with us today. And thank you, everyone who was listening to us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.